Community services, Asian involvement in Little Tokyo, the first Asian movement center while living in a political collective in Boyle Heights. She was director of the first Asian Women's Center, a delegate to UN Decade for Women's Convention in Nairobi, Kenya, sponsored by United Nations NGO, and fought for redress and reparations with NCRR, Nikkei for Civil Rights and Redress. Poet, writer, KPFK radio host, Ra Fushimbo columnist, her life experiences have informed her cultural and political activism. She is currently working to preserve the legacy and cultural soul of Little Tokyo in the face of gentrification. Please welcome to the stage, Miya Iwataki.
Spirit of the 60s and 70s, a prose poem. This was the 60s and 70s, a vibrant era teeming with music and movements. Martin Luther King had a dream. Malcolm X had a message to the grassroots. This was the age of protest. Women burned bras, young men burned draft cards, anti-war protesters burned the flag, and the inner cities burned in rebellion. This, the age of Aquarius. Hippies turned on, tuned in, and tuned out, wandering through Woodstock in a purple haze of crystal blue persuasion. This, the era of social change, where a people's movement mobilized and marched against racism, leading the fight to win civil rights in '64. This, the age of liberation. We women stood up, spoke out, took back the night, appropriated our bodies and ourselves, searing our way into history and sisterhood. This was the era of great heights. JFK asked not what our country could do for us, but what we could do for our country, and we did. And John Glenn became the first man to walk on the moon while the whole world watched. And the whole world watched as 23,000 Chicago police rioted against protesters at the 1968 Democratic National Convention, and watched again at Kent State in May 1970 as National Guards opened fire, killing 4 unarmed student protesters, and we marched. It was an era of assassinations. President John F. Kennedy, November 22nd, 1964, motorcade, Dallas, Texas. Malcolm X, February 21st, 1964, the Audubon Ballroom, New York. Reverend Martin Luther King, April 4th, 1968, the Lorraine Hotel, Memphis, Tennessee. Bobby Kennedy, June 6, 1968, the Ambassador Hotel, Los Angeles. And we marched. It was an age of revolution and third world liberation struggles and armies of freedom fighters rising from poverty to liberate their people, and we marched. And there was a war in Vietnam, when a small country stood up to the most powerful nation in the world in a war that changed the culture of America. And we marched. We, the invisible minority. We, the checkbox marked other. We, the quiet Americans. We, the gardeners, housekeepers, farmers, sewing workers. We, gentle geishas. We, sexy Susie Wongs. We, hard workers pulling ourselves up by our bootstraps. We, Orientals in the eyes of Occidentals. We, the model minority. We stood up to break our silence, to reclaim our history, to honor our people, to shatter boundaries of race, age, gender, class, to stand with our communities struggling for justice, to embrace the spirit of internationalism, to end the war in Vietnam, a war against Asian people, and by our presence, taking the struggle beyond bring our boys back home to Asian lives matter. We marched in our community in the Nisei Week Parade under the banner of the Van Troy Anti-Imperialist Youth Brigade. Go left, go right, go pick up the gun. In formation, go left, go right, go pick up the gun. In memory of Nguyen Van Troy, who gave his life to try to end the war. Simultaneously, on a balcony of the Sumitomo building, slipping by security to shower anti-war leaflets into the crowd below, in the spirit of Taibin, we marched. Dr. Martin Luther King had a dream where Black lives mattered, Muslim lives mattered, Asian lives mattered, the people mattered, and we dreamed and won justice and redress. Malcolm X had a message to the grassroots. We share that message and the fighting spirit of the 60s and 70s in the memory of Sei Fuji, Medgar Evers, Cesar Chavez, from Greensboro to Charlottesville to El Paso, from Wounded Knee to Standing Rock, from Little Tokyo anti-eviction to Little Tokyo anti-gentrification, from Manzanar and Tule Lake to Fort Sill. And for many, it began in Little Tokyo, the cultural soul of the Japanese American community. Let the spirit of the 60s and 70s continue to inspire us. All power to the people.